covers the vision of the living entity, and then these Brahmavadis, Mayavadis, they are not able to see the form of the Lord, and they imagine that Lord's form is temporary. So Arjuna asks that how does how are how do they get into that kind of situation? Krishna replies that actually, first of all, I am above these clouds of material energy. I know the past, present, and future. And then he says that Ichha Dvesha Samuddhena Dvanda Mohena Bharata. Because of Ichha and Dvesh, Prabhupada tells that the living entity has been there in the spiritual world. But when it thinks like why Krishna should be the only enjoyer, this thought is the root cause of the living entity's fall down. Why Krishna should be the only enjoyer? Why not me? This is called Dvesha. And then because of the Dvesha, it develops Ichha that I should also enjoy like Krishna. So when these two qualities appear, then the living entity is transported here in this material world where every living entity wants to enjoy separate from Krishna. And then Arjuna asks, how can the living entity go back? And then Krishna says that those who have become pious now and their sinful actions are eradicated, they become eligible to perform Bhakti Yoga. And we discussed how the great devotees like Srila Prabhupada and Acharyas, they actually benefit this world by moving around because simply by their darshan, piety is created in the heart of a conditioned soul. By hearing from them, a person becomes pious, and it is only by such piety of coming in contact with the pure devotees that a person becomes eligible to practice Krishna consciousness. And then in the last two verses, Krishna talks about a person who want to go beyond the cycle of birth and death, is moksha kami. And then he introduces certain terms. And now in this 8th chapter, we will see that Arjuna asks question in the first two verses, and then Krishna replies, and then the conversation goes ahead. This chapter's acronym is DEAD. There are doubts and the clarification of doubts in the first four verses. The last question which was asked by Arjuna in the second verse of this chapter is that how does one remember you at the time of death? And then the further chapter, starting from text 5 till 28, basically discusses about remembering Krishna at the end of life. So Krishna talks about how one can remember him at the end of life. Then he talks of different means of attaining him, the means used by the yogis and the means used by the bhaktas. And then he talked about how the devotion to him is the highest. And this is the first time in this chapter Krishna talks of his abode. Krishna talks of Tad Dhama Paramam, that abode of mine. So faith in Krishna means faith in Krishna's personality, that Krishna is the supreme person. Because oftentimes people do not have a very clear concept of who God is. They say God is some light, some energy, some concept, something. But actually to know God as the supreme person, that is faith. That God is a person and God has its own place where he lives. That is the supreme abode. That is Golok Vrindavan, Vrindavan Dham. And the way to go there is to chant the holy name. So to have faith in these three things is called real faith in devotional service. So this chapter begins by Arjuna asking question. So this is a very beautiful quality of Arjuna. Whenever he hears with such attention. And if he does not understand something, he immediately asks question. So time and again, Krishna introduces some concept, or Krishna appear to be talking in an equivocal way, and then immediately Arjuna says, "Wait a minute, I have not understood it. Let me ask you a question." Same thing you find in Srimad Bhagavatam also. If Parikshit Maharaj hears something, what Sukadeva Goswami is saying, and he's not able to understand it, immediately he says, "Wait, let me ask you a question." So such questions are very necessary, pariprashnena sevaya, because we learn through asking questions, verifying the doubts. So these are the questions which Arjuna is asking, and these are presented with answers here. What is Adhyatma? This is the first question he asked. Adhyatma can refer to the soul, body, or mind of living being. Generally refers to the soul. So the soul leaves the body when the time of the soul in that particular body is over, and the soul leaves the body. So this is Adhyatma. Second thing he asked is what is Brahman? It's the second question he asked. And Prabhupada defines Brahman in this purport as Brahman is indestructible and eternally existing and refers to the living entity. But beyond Brahman, there is Parabrahman. So Brahman can refer to both the living entity as well as Parabrahman, the Supreme Lord. What is karma? So here, Prabhupada says, material consciousness means that the jiva's nature is to try to be the lord of matter. It has forgotten its original position, original service, and it is covered over by material body. So when the material body acts by the force of material consciousness, that is called karma. That means, Prabhupada at one place in third canto Bhagavatam writes that any activity done by the living entity except the activities which are done in the mood of being a servant of the Lord. That means first one has to understand one is a servant of the Lord and one has to act in that consciousness. He says anything other than understanding that I am Krishna's servant and my only duty is to serve him, other than this consciousness, any activity done is karma and it produces result which binds the living entity into this world. So spiritual consciousness is that Jiva's position is to serve the Supreme. So karma means any material body acts under material consciousness of identifying oneself with anything other than Krishna's service. Because the living entity's actual position is one, just like 2 plus 2 is 4. So that is fixed, that 2 plus 2 is 4. Now what 2 plus 2 is not, that is 8.4 million options are there. So similarly, the Jiva can identify itself with all the different species which are created by Lord Brahma. But the real identity is only one, that Jivera Sarupa, Krishna and Nityadas. All other are wrong options. And any action done under the impel of this kind of identification, that is called karma. What is Adi Bhuta? Adi Bhuta is defined as the ever-changing material manifestation. And these are the 6 changes which any material being undergoes: birth, growth, maintenance, production, byproduct, dwindle, and vanish. So this physical nature, the changing physical nature, is called Adi Bhuta. And what is Adi Devata? Adi Devata is defined as the gigantic universal form of the Lord. So this is contemplated by the neophytes who cannot approach the Supreme Lord in his manifestation as Super Soul. So this is again detailed and described in the second chapter, second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Adi Deva, how there are different planetary system are his limbs, like Patal is the bottom of his feet, and Rasatala is the heels and toes. So a gross yogi, he meditate like this. He meditate on the universe as the Virat Rupa of the form, Virat Purusha form of the Lord. And what is Adi Yajna? Adi Yajna means that super soul is situated in our heart. This is called Paramatma. This is Adi Yajna. Adi Yajna can also sometimes refers to Lord Indra, who is also Yajnapati, sometimes is referred to. So this is a very interesting cycle we can see here. That in the process of sacrifice, like the Karmakanda sacrifice, the living entity makes specific sacrifice to attain heavenly planet and consequently reaches them. So once the living entity reaches them, when the Chhine Punya, when the Punya is over, then the living entity is to be expelled from the heavenly planet. So what happens? It comes to Chandraloka. And Chandraloka, the clouds are formed. So in the clouds, the living entity which has earlier enjoyed on heaven, it takes the form of rain. And then it falls on the ground because the rains come from the sky. And then it goes into the grains, the living entity. The grains are eaten by man and then transferred into semen, then it impregnates a woman. And then again, that living entity which was enjoying on the heavenly planet, now it has come into the womb of a mother and then it takes birth. And then again, it may perform sacrifices. The same cycle continues. In this way, the living entity perpetually comes and goes on the material planet. So, Krishna conscious person, however, avoids the sacrifices. He takes to Krishna directly and thereby prepares him to return to God. So, these are all gymnastics within the material universe only. Krishna will talk about it in a little later also. All these methods of sacrifices and performing pious things and impious things, they all keep on rotating one in the jail of this material world only. Only thing is one goes from third class cell to second class jail, to first class jail, again come back to third class. Sometimes it moves in the field, but it does not go out of the jail. So it does not take one out of the material world. So they go on in the same cycle. This is defined here. So now the last question which Arjuna has asked is how to remember you at the time of death and what is the consequence of remembering you at the time of death. So this is the important section. We take birth and we go through childhood. Jahino Isman Yatha Jahino Kaumaram. So this is the Kaumaram, adolescence, the teenagers is there. And this is adulthood, Kaumaram, Yovanam. And this is Zara, this is old age.
So what's through this storm? Where do we go? Is it nothing?
So we can see that even while being in this body, the soul is, changing the body. Our body has changed. We can see our childhood photo and we can see we have grown up. And 20 years down the line, if we stay, then we'll become old people. So Death is not the end of everything. Death is the beginning of another life, either material life or a spiritual life. So Krishna has already told in the second chapter, Dehino ismin yatha dehe kaumaram yavaram jara. Tata dehantara prapti. In this life, we can see the internal reincarnation. We can see the reincarnation within the same body. So same thing, if this body is no more useful, then the soul takes on to another body. So this is the mystery of death. And this is, Krishna says, Anta kale cha mameva spurana muktva kalevaram. Yaprayati samadbhavam yati nasti atra samsaya. That anybody who remembers me at the time of death, he becomes liberated and he attains to my bhava. Yaprayati samadbhavam, he attains to my world. Do not have any kind of doubt in this word. Yati nasti atra samsaya. You see here, Ajamila remembered the Lord at the time of death and how Lord saved him.
Narayan! Narayan! Oh, Narayan!
This is how the Yamadutas they try to take out the subtle body. And the soul goes on along with the subtle body. They cannot touch the soul.
Who are you that dares to challenge us? For we are the Yamadutas.
Yeah. So here you can see that the Yamadutas have their subtle ropes by which they bind the subtle body. And when the subtle body is taken out, the gross body remains back, and the soul voluntarily goes along with the subtle body because soul is identifying with the subtle body. Imagine like this: some child is playing a video game, and he's there, his eyes are glued on the screen, and he's seeing, what's going to happen, and he has the jockey in his hand and moving. Now, if somebody just comes up and picks up the screen and starts moving, the child is so engrossed in playing, he will start walking behind the screen. So similarly, the soul, although it has nothing to do even with the subtle matter like mind or intelligence, but because of the false ego, the soul assumes an identity. I am this boy, I am this girl, I am this man or woman, I'm Indian or African, or I'm rich or poor or young or old. These are all identities which are actually not applicable to the soul, but these are misidentifications. These are upadhis. So the subtle body works under subtle laws. So the Yamadutas, they take out the subtle body with the Yamapash, with the ropes, special rope, and then the soul goes along with that voluntarily. Soul is not to be touched by anything else. So Ajamila, because he got the association of Vishnu Dutas, he remembered Lord Narayana at the end of his life, although incidentally, the Vishnu Dutas came and they offered him a second chance after which Ajamila went to Haridwar and he practiced, and then he attained perfection. So anybody who remembers Krishna at the time of death, he goes to Krishna Loka. Here you find Gajendra. Gajendra was fighting with a crocodile and he remembered the Lord. Oh, Supreme Lord, please come and save me. So then the Lord appeared and then killed the crocodile. I think yesterday there was a session of Gajendra Moksha. And what happens? The living entity reaches Vaikuntha. And this is Vaikuntha where the Lord Lakshmi Narayan is served by all the
कौसल्या सुप्रजा राम पूर्वा संध्या प्रवर्तते उत्तिष्ठ नरशार्दूल कर्तव्यं दैवमान्निकम् उत्तिष्ठ गोविन्द उत्तिष्ठ गरुडध्वज उत्तिष्ठ कमलाकान्ता त्रैलोक्यं मङ्गलं कुरु उत्तिष्ठ गोविन्द उत्तिष्ठ गरुडध्वज उत्तिष्ठ कमलाकान्ता त्रैलोक्यं मङ्गलं कुरु.
So this is the scene of Vaikuntha where constant service to the Supreme Lord goes on. And nobody thinks about one's own pleasure. Everyone is focused on pleasing Lakshmi Narayan. And they glorify them, they offer flower garlands to them, and all kind of paraphernalia and all kind of music is played for their pleasure. So on what basis the soul is avoided the next body? One who remembers the Lord at the time of death, then he attains the nature of the Lord. He goes back to the spiritual world. And those who remember something else, they attain a body on that basis. Yam yam vapi smaram bhavam, Tejati ante kalevara. Tam tam eveti konteya sada tadbhav bhavita. So this is the general law that whatever state of being one remembers while leaving the body, that state is attained without fail. So whatever state of being one remembers at the time of leaving his body, that state he will attain without fail. So that means we accept one body after getting another depending on what are the desires stored in our mind at the time of death, whatever desires we have and whatever we deserve. So deserve means it is like the good or bad karma in our account. Sometimes we may go to a mobile shop to buy a mobile. So we may like a mobile which is very costly, but if we do not have the proper uh, amount to pay, then we cannot buy it. We have to settle for something which is in our capacity to purchase. So similarly, we may have desires, but the desire also have to match with our deserving capacity, what we desire and what we deserve. So that we get the next. So these are quite an interesting collection. You can see that death is such a thing. When it will come, how it will come, what moment it will come, nobody can define. The collected things, you can see accidents and heart attacks, and right on the stage in front of the mic, and the tree collapsing, and the road accidents. I mean, each one of them is selected slides. Radheshyam worked very hard to find these slides and put them all together here. But interesting thing is that many people talk about art of living, but actually more than art of living, one has to understand the art of living. Because everyone has to live, no matter how much we live in this world, but art of living is very important. And our life, our living should be based on such a way that we can live to the higher destination at the end of life. It's a very important part. So Bhagavad Gita teaches us not only art of living, but it teaches us art of living as well as art of living perfectly. So it is said that if one wants to enjoy life, one should never remember death. But if one wants to practice spiritual life seriously, one should constantly remember death. Because death is the ultimate reality. And just like in our business, many times we do reverse calculation. So we say, okay, I have a meeting at 10:30, then I should reach office at 10 o'clock, then I should start from home at 9 o'clock, then I should, take my breakfast at 8:30, then I should wake up at 7 o'clock, and reverse calculation it is called. Similarly, Krishna says that one should actually, an intelligent human being should do reverse calculation. He should say, okay, I have to leave this world one day, then what am I doing to make a program for that? Intelligent people are those who plan for not only for this life, but for after this life also. So what happens to different kinds of people? These are the different kind of destination for different grades of people. Those who are lusty or lazy or envious or expose the body or to eat meat. So these are different destinations out there. Yam yam vapi swanam bhavam tejate ante kalevara. Bharat Mala remembered a deer at the time of death, and then he became a deer. So one's thoughts during the course of one's life accumulate to influence one's thoughts at the moment of death. So this life creates one's next life. So if one in one's present life, one lives in the mode of goodness and always think of Krishna, it is possible for one to remember Krishna at the end of one's life. That will help one transfer to the transcendental nature of Krishna. So it's very important to cultivate remembrance. Purpose is one should cultivate remembrance of the Lord. So this cultivation, if we go, there's a difference between cultivation and manufacturing. Manufacturing is a different kind of process. Cultivation is a different kind of process. So, for example, we cultivate the crops. So, cultivating crops means it's a whole process. It starts with tilling the land, making the land fertile, then putting seed into the land, and then watering it. Then, depending on the rains and sunlight. So, cultivation is an entire process. It takes time, it takes effort, and it takes patience. So, our process of Krishna consciousness is a cultivation. These days, people's mind are filled with product consciousness. Product consciousness means I go to a shop and ready-made I buy. I buy a pair of clothes, I buy my specs, I buy my shoes, I buy my car, and everything is ready-made. I go to a coffee shop, I press the button, and the coffee comes. So modern civilization is very much product-oriented, where people feel if they have the right amount of money, they can just buy anything at their disposal. But actually, human life is not product-oriented. Human life is actually process-oriented. If you want to be truly happy, then one has to learn the right process. So process means there is a whole chain of activities which need to be done one after another in proper sequence. And even after doing the whole chain, the end result is not in one's hands completely. For example, cultivation, as we're talking of crop cultivation. Even if one has made the land fertile, one has put the seed, but it's not in one's hand that the seeds will come. They will take their own time, and the rains and sunlight is not in one's hand. So similarly, cultivating remembrance of the Lord means there's a process to be followed. Sometimes people say, "Oh, it's wonderful. I have to remember Krishna only at the time of death. So I will do whatever I want the whole life. And at the end of the day, end of the life, I will just put a Hare Krishna Mahamantra in front, and I will take a gun and I will shoot myself. So I will enjoy both world nicely. I will enjoy in this world and go back to Krishna Loka immediately after killing myself." But that is not so easy. One cannot cheat Krishna. So it is to be cultivated throughout one's life. It is not a artificial remembrance. Krishna says, Sada tad bhav bhavita. Bhav bhavita means, just like we say Krishna bhavanamrita. Bhav bhavita means that consciousness is saturated. That means one knows, one has developed faith in Krishna, one has developed relationship with Krishna, one has developed love for Krishna, one has developed service attitude towards Krishna. So it is not just a theoretical remembrance, okay, Krishna and I shoot myself, I go there. No, Krishna is not so easily to be cheated. Nobody can cheat Krishna. So that is why this is the prime purpose of a devotee to cultivate remembrance from Krishna. And what is the process? Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam. The more we hear attentively, the more we chant the holy name and more we preach the glories of the holy name, the more Krishna blesses us with this remembrance. So devotee has to consistently practice, and that he tells in the next verse. Here also we see, we were discussing about it in the beginning session. Hearing is important, but practical application is most important. Only then will it be possible to remember the Lord constantly. So how do we hear? We hear, we understand, and then we do mananam. That means introspection. How does it apply to me in my life? What did I learn today? What are the points I can apply? And then niti dhyasana means that one makes a plan for applying it in a daily course of life. So this is shravanam, mananam, niti dhyasana. These are the three steps from hearing to applying. So Prabhupada continues in the purport to 8.6. If one is transcendently absorbed in Krishna's service, then his next body will be transcendental, not material. Therefore, the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare is the best process for successfully changing one's state of being at the end of one's life. Srila Prabhupada has quoted this Mahamantra 3 times within just 2 purports. That means one purport is quoted twice, because chanting of the holy name is such an important part of remembrance. The more we chant and more we chant offenselessly, the more our remembrance for Krishna becomes stronger. So one has to cultivate, one has to practice it, thinking of Krishna always. How does one does that? Krishna talks about this in text 7. Let's repeat. Tasma sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmara yuddhacha mahi arpit mano buddhir mam eva shishish asamshaya. So Krishna says that tasmat, therefore, sarveshu, at all situations, in all different situations, and kaleshu, in all different times, in all places, and in all circumstances. What you should do, Arjuna? Mam anusmar, you should remember me. Arjuna thought it's a good thing. Krishna, I'm going to remember you, I'm going to forest. Krishna said, no, you can't go to forest. Mam anusmar yuddhacha. You remember me, along with that, you perform the activities which I have given to you. You cannot run away. So Mam Anushmar Yuddhacha. But first you remember, then you perform your duties. In my remembrance, whatever duties you perform, they will become devotional service. Mai Arbit Mano Buddhi. Offer your intelligence and mind unto me. So you do activities with physical senses, you absorb your consciousness and remembering of me, and you offer your mind and intelligence to me. That means with your mind and intelligence, you make plans of service to me, of pleasing me. Mam Eva Shashi Asamteya. If you do this, you will attain me without doubt. Do not have doubt. Krishna uses the word asamsaya many times. He says, asamsayam maho mahabaho. That when it's asked the question about the mind, Chanchalam Himana Krishna, asamsayam. Yeah, do not doubt. This is true. So Krishna is giving here assurance, Mam eva shashi asamsaya, that you will definitely come to me if you do like that. So this is the practical thing for us, but tells that actually we are not to give up any duty, but duty should be performed in Krishna consciousness. How do we remember Krishna? By attending the morning program. Morning program is the most essential part of a devotee's life because it includes all the limbs of devotional service in fullness. It includes Shravanam, it includes Kirtanam, it includes remembrance, it includes hearing of Bhagavatam, it includes chanting of the holy name, it includes worship of the deity, it includes worship of Tulsi Maharani, it includes association of devotees. So all the essence which our acharyas have given for a devotee to practice, that is all practiced in the morning program as Srila Prabhupada has organized it. So that is what we do. In the morning and evening, we do our morning and evening program, and in between we do Yuddhacha. Yuddhacha means we do our occupational duties. And while doing our occupational duties, we use our mind and intelligence to serve in such a way that the Lord is pleased. So this is the practice which a devotee has to cultivate. Remembrance will not be all of a sudden, but remembrance is a result of gradual cultivation on a daily basis. And then Arjuna asked him, how this is possible to remember you? Then he said, Abhyasa Yoga Yuktena. Abhyas means practice. Practice means to do one thing repeatedly. Just like when we learn car driving, we practice it. We go to open ground and keep on, ABC, accelerator, brake, clutch, and we do that. We learn Mridanga, we practice it. We learn cooking, we practice it. Any skill or any art we learn, we have to practice it. It is said practice makes a man perfect. So, Abhyasa Yoga Yuktena, one who practices to meditate, Yoga Yuktena, Chetasa na anya gamina. He has to ensure that Chetasa, that consciousness should not go to anya gamina, it should not go to another place, it should not deviate. What? Paramam Purusham Divyam. Unto me, my supreme transcendental form, Purusham Divyam. Yathi Partha Anuchintayan. Then such a person attains me by such constant thinking of me. So here Krishna recommends constant thinking of himself. And then now he says how one can think of him. So first he tells about a yogi. Okay, this is a part of the purport. The Lord does not say that one should give up his prescribed duty or engagements. One can continue them and at the same time think of Krishna by chanting Hare Krishna. This will free one from mental contamination and engage the mind and intelligence in Krishna. By chanting Krishna's names, one will be transferred to the supreme planet Krishna Loka without a doubt. So chanting is the main process. But Srila Prabhupada, whenever he referred to chanting in his letters and writings, he always mentioned to chanting with attention and without offenses. So the entire summary of Krishna consciousness practice is to how to chant offenselessly. And that also the first offense is to blaspheme the devotees. So a devotee should mold his life in such a way that he is able to chant Hare Krishna without committing the nama parada, without committing the offenses. So one should pay attention that the offenses are not there. Then the chanting is very effective in creating remembrance of it. Now, Krishna talks about the third section, attaining the Supreme. How one should meditate on him, because he told Arjuna by Abhyasa, you practice meditating on him. So, in this ninth verse, Krishna talks about 9 ways of remembering him. Kavim Puranam Anushashitaram Anorane. This verse says that one should remember me as omniscient, as a knower of past, present, and future. One should meditate on me as the beginningless or the oldest, or the controller of everything, smaller than the smallest, maintainer of everything, as inconceivable Lord, as the Lord with a beautiful person, Rupam, as luminous like the sun and self-revealing, and as transcendental to material nature, full of ignorance. So this is the 9 items of remembrance of the Lord. And now Krishna is advising Arjuna about a Sata Chakra yoga system, the 6th chakra yoga system. And then his new thing which is introducing, Prayana Kalena Manasa Chalena Bhaktya Yukto Yoga Balena Chaiva. So then he's describing the yoga process. That one who at the time of death fixes his life, prana, between the eyebrows, Agya Chakra, and by the strength of yoga with an undeviated mind, remembers me, the Supreme Lord, who is having the qualities which are mentioned in the above verse, and full devotion will certainly attain him. So here he describes the process of Satachakra Yoga. This is a brief description of Yoga Mishra Bhakti, the yoga, there are the chakras, and there is called Kundalini Jagaran. So Krishna in the further verses describes about what are the requirements for Satachakra Yoga, that one should be renounced or not having any attachment, Vitaraga. One should be a celibate, follow Brahmacharya Vrata. One should have knowledge of Vedas, Veda Vida, and one should utter the syllable Om. And then what happens by such yoga system? One can become liberated or enter into Brahman. So this is a complicated process. And process is further described in verse number 12. How by closing all the doors of the senses, withdrawing the senses from sense object, fixing the mind on heart, fixing the prana on top of head, one should take shelter of me, yoga dharana. And then what is the destination? That one should vibrate the syllable Om. And in that time one thinks of me, Mamanusmaran, quits his body, then he will certainly attain the spiritual planet, Paramam Gatim. Sayati Paramam Gatim. So this three verses describe about the complicated yoga process through mechanical technique of meditation. But in verse 14, saying, you know, Arjuna's confusion, already Arjuna had rejected the Ashtanga Yoga system in the sixth chapter, so he finds it very complicated. So Krishna tells, wait a minute, through bhakti it can be easily done. Ananya chetaha satatam. Ananya means no other. Chetaha satatam. That means the mind should not be diverted to anything else. Yo ma vismrati nityasa. The devotee who always remember me exclusively. Yo ma vismrati nityasa. Tasyaham sulabha partha. Sulabha, lava means to gain. Sulabha means very easily gaining. So tasyaham sulabha partha. For him, I am very easy to obtain a partha. Why? Nitya yuktasya yogina. Because he is constantly engaged in my devotional service. So this is the easy way compared to the process of Jnana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, which are so complicated and which lead to imperfect result. The process of Bhakti Yoga is simple and it leads to highest perfection. Why? Because in the process of Bhakti Yoga, the Lord Himself comes to assess the devotee. It's very amazing. Srila Prabhupada in his ecstasy, he speaks in his lectures and writes in his purports. Today I compiled a document of that. Prabhupada said that Lord is much more eager to take us back to Him. He's much more anxious to get us back to Him than we are to go to Him. And this becomes to the credit of the Bhakti Yogi. That not only is he endeavoring to attain Krishna, but actually Krishna is feeling separation from him and Krishna wants to take him. That's why Tasyaham Sulabha Partha. Nitya Yuktasya Yogina. If a devotee does his part of remembering Krishna exclusively as much as he can, withdrawing his mind and senses from sense object and focusing it in Krishna's service, then Krishna's mercy comes. And when Krishna's mercy comes, then everything becomes Sulabham. So for Krishna, nothing is difficult. Imagine if a child has to go to a foreign country. Where does he know where is the embassy's office, where is the visa, where is the passport, where is the ticket, and where is the checking counter, and where is the baggage checking counter? For a child, it is almost an impossibility to, get off from his home and reach another country. This is like the practice of all these Gyanis, yogis, and all. They want to engage their mind and brain to go back to the Supreme Abode. But what happens to Bhakta? Bhakta may not have all the knowledge. In the 10th chapter, it will come. The Bhakta may not be literate also. He may not be able to read scripture also. But if he is inclined to serve the Lord favorably with love and affection, Lord makes all the arrangements. So Bhakta's method is very simple. He raises the hand and chants Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. In this kind of calling from the heart, it attracts the Lord, and the Lord comes riding on the Garuda and takes the devotee with him. So now Krishna starts the next theme where he says how to get impetus to fix the mind on Krishna by describing the result of Kevala Bhakti. What happens to his devotees who focus their mind on him? And what happens to those who do not fix the mind on him is described in 18th and 19th. So for a devotee, there is no rebirth. Mam upetya punarjanma dukkhalayam ashashvatam. Once who attain me, after attaining me, they never take birth again. In this temporary world, which is full of miseries. Dukkhalayam ashashvatam. Napnuvanti mahatmanam. Such great souls never return to this world. Why? Because some siddhim paramam gata. They have attained the highest goal of paramam gata. Paramam gata means the highest goal of personally serving the Lord. This is a specialty of Golok Vrindavan, that Krishna gives the opportunity to personally serve him to every resident of Golok Vrindavan, whether it be a blade of grass or whether it be a tree or a calf or a cow or a gopa or a gopi. Everyone has personal access to Krishna. Some siddhim paramam gata. So now what happens to the temporary material world? It says here, this is Dhruva going back to Vaikuntha. So a devotee goes back to the Vaikuntha Loka after serving the Lord in this world, if he has cultivated pure devotional service. And for others, there is rebirth. Those who do not take to the personal devotional service, Brahma Bhavana Loka, they can go up to Bhavana Loka, first class jail, and then Punaravartuna Arjuna, then again come back in the cycle. Mamapetya tu konte, those who come to me, Punarjanma na vidyate. So now the next verses will describe about the material realm, how complicated the material world is. Krishna simultaneously gives us as an experience in brief how the material world is so complicated and so dangerous. So here he talks about the duration of lifetime of Brahma. Sahasra yuga paryantam aharyad brahmano vidu ratram yuga sahasranante teho ratra vidojana. So here is the whole calculation which I will not go in detail. But suffice to say that Kali Yuga is 4,32,000 years Dwapar Yuga is twice of it, Treta Yuga is thrice of it, Satyuga is 4 times of it. So one Divya Yuga or Mahayuga is called one Satyuga, Treta, Dwapar, Kali Yuga, which means 43 lakh 20,000 years. And one Manvantara, one Manu, rules for 71 Mahayugas. And like that, there are 14 Manvantara in one day of Brahma. That means 1,000 Mahayugas are there. So one day of Brahma becomes 432 billion human years. And one night is of the same duration. Then year is 360 days, 360 nights. So it becomes again this much. And one life is 100 Brahmas years, that is 311 trillion and 4 billion years. Now imagine in this, where does our 60, 70 years fit? These are 311 trillion years, Our life is not even an atomic proportion to Brahmaji's life. So this is the calculation of the day. But even after that, a person who does not practice Bhakti Yoga again keeps on rotating in this cycle of birth and death. So then Krishna says at the beginning of Brahma's day, all living entities become manifest, Vyakta. And when the night falls, they become unmanifest, Avyakta. In this way, the jivas appear and disappear again and again, Bhutva, Bhutva, Pralayate, as the days and nights of Brahma arrive. So this is the end of the people who engage in materialistic activities, who do not engage in Bhakti Yoga. So this is very important. There are three kinds of pralayas which happen. One kind of pralaya or destruction is when the soul changes the body, gross body every time. That's one kind of death. One kind of pralaya it is considered. Another pralaya happens when Brahma's day ends, night begins. So again, the water of the Garbhoda Goshen rises up to Janaloka, and everything is in water. And then Brahmaji sleeps, so a lot of destruction takes place. Then when Brahmaji again gets up, then again everything is taken back into place and organized. So this is second kind of pralaya at the end of Brahma's day. And third kind of pralaya is at the end of Brahma's life. Then what happens? The universe comes to an end and the universe goes back into the Nabhi of Mahavishnu. Living entities stay there and again. So these three kind of pralaya happen again and again and again. There's four kind of pralaya which is called Atyantiki pralaya. Atyantiki pralaya means when the Ahankar, the false ego of the living entity is destroyed, then the living entity becomes liberated from the false ego and then it goes back to the Supreme Lord's abode. This is called Atyantiki pralaya. So all these three kind of pralaya, the death of the body, the end of the day of Brahma and end of life of Brahma cannot, help the living entity to attain Atyantiki pralaya, cannot help the living entity to get rid of its false ego. There's only one thing by which that living entity gets rid of its false ego, and that is the association of devotees. So that is why till the time the living entity comes in the association of Lord's devotees, no one touches that false ego. Even the yogis and jnanis are controlled by false ego because they are in the mood of I am the doer. I will attain it. I will attain siddhis. I will attain liberation. So that I-ness is there. So that I-ness is again a false designation. And that is not rightly, I am not this material body, but what I am is not clear. But for a bhakta from day one, it's clear. I am Krishna's servant. Krishna's servant. So because of this, a neophyte bhakti yogi, the day one, first day of a bhakti yogi, a devotee who has just come in contact with other devotees, started chanting Hare Krishna, is considered far more superior and advanced to the advanced jnanis and yogis who may be practicing their process for many, many thousands of years and many, many lifetimes. Why? Because the devotee is put in the right situation from day one. So Krishna heartily glorifies the devotee, and only in the association of devotees, the Atyantiki pralaya happens. When the false ego of the living entity is destroyed and the living entity gets liberated from the material universe and goes back to the spiritual abode of the Lord. So these are the manifest and unmanifest states of the material world. Sometimes it is manifested, sometimes it is unmanifested in the form of Mahatattva. Just like a building, the elements of the building are always existing, but sometimes the building is constructed and there are 100-floor building and every floor has houses and houses have curtains and all the household paraphernalia. And at another time, the building gets crushed and then the elements are still there, but that is their unmanifested. So sometimes there is manifestation, sometimes there is unmanifestation. But beyond this, Krishna says, there is eternal spiritual world, that is my abode. Beyond this, there is another unmanifest nature which is eternal, Sanatana, supreme, indestructible, and is transcendental to this manifested and unmanifested nature. When all in this material world is annihilated, it remains as it is. So here Krishna describes about his own abode. Avyakto akshara iti yuktas tamahu paramam gatim yam prapya na nivartante tad dhama paramam mama. These two lines come in the 15th chapter also. Yam yad gatva na nivartante taddham paramam mama. So here Krishna for the first time indicates about his supreme abode. Yam prapya na nivartante taddhama paramam mama. That place from which having attained it, one never returns. So this is the comparison. The material nature, bhutva, bhutva, praliyate, it is manifested, unmanifested, the living entities come and go. But somebody who takes to the path of devotion service to Krishna, remember him constantly, then he attains Krishna's spiritual world, the abode of Krishna. Tadham paramam. And what happens? Yam prapya na nivartante. Now having defined that, now again Krishna goes to describe the process of attaining the abode. And what he says, my abode is attainable only by Ananya Bhakti. Purushasa Para Partha, O Partha, the supreme person who is greater than all. Bhaktya labhyas to Ananya. This is very significant. It's attained by unalloyed and undeviating devotion. Like earlier also, Ananya Cheta Hasulabhav. Ananya Cheta, Krishna does not want that the consciousness of the mind is distracted to anything else. Ananya. Ananya Shinta Chinto Ye Jana Paripasate. Tomorrow we will see that. So Krishna uses that word Ananya every time he mentions about his bhakti. He wants exclusive devotion unto him. There are many levels at which people can approach him. But to attain the ultimate perfection, Krishna says Ananya. Everyone is accommodated, but to attain the highest destination, Ananya, no more mixing. Yash Shanta, Sthani, Bhutani, everything is situated within him. And Yana Sarvam Idam Tatam is all pervading, though it's presented in the book. So now Krishna describes about how the yogis try to attain the highest abode and how the devotee attains the same abode by remembering the Lord. So this is the last part of devotion. So two ways are there for leaving the body. These are described in text number 24 to 26. Two ways of leaving the body. There's a path of light, and for Gyanis and Yogis, they have to choose that time. If they die at a wrong time, then they will not reach the destination. So two ways of leaving the body, the path of light. These are for Gyanis and Yogis, and they reach Brahma Jyoti. They get liberated, no return. And then there's a path of darkness. This is for Karmis who reach up to heaven and then take rebirth again and again in the material world. So this is based on the commentary of Acharyas, especially Baldev Vidyabhushan has given elaborate commentary on this. So this is how when a yogi leaves the body, then the deity of light takes his soul and hand it over to the deity of day. Then the deity of day takes it to the deity of waxing fortnight, and the deity of month. So these are all deities. This is all handling. It is all like, like sometimes you take a flight. So there are connecting flights. You take a flight from, say, LA. So LA, the flight will first stop at New York on the eastern coast, and then it may come to Middle East somewhere, then it may come to Europe somewhere, then it may come to India, and then it reaches like that. So similarly, these are all transit flights, and the doors are closed one after another in sequence. And if a yogi leaves the body at the right time, then it is guided by these following deities. And finally, these deities hand him over, and this associate of the Lord takes him to Brahma Jyoti. And if a person dies in the dark thing, then what happens? Then Karmi leave the body, then the deity of smoke, night, waxing fortnight, they take him up to the deity of moon. Okay, the deity of moon is also considered heavenly planet, and they enjoy their pious credit there. They drink somaras, they enjoy the apsaras, and then when the pious credit are exhausted, the credit card is done. Then what happens? Then they take the form of rains. They come back to the earth. Then they come into grains, and then the grains go into man's body, and then they again take birth again. That circle which we already described. So this is described by Krishna. Arjuna wonders, how am I going to do all this? How will I take care of all this? You are telling me to fight the war. If I die in the war, what will happen? I don't know all the calculation of when to leave the body, when not to leave the body. Krishna says, for my devotees, there is no worry. You don't have to worry about all this. Why? Because path of devotee is that although the devotee knows these two parts, Sriti, Partha, Yogi, Mayati, Krishna, Tasma, Sarveshu, Kaleshu, Yoga, Yukto, Bhavardhana. That they are never bewildered. The devotees are not confused or bewildered by this. Therefore, we always fix in devotion. Tasma sarveshu kaleshu yoga yukta bhavardhana. You be yoga yukta. You be fixed in remembrance of me. This is the difference, as we were telling earlier, that a devotee's process is to call on like a child. Prabhupada says chanting Hare Krishna, actual meaning is like a baby crying out for his mother Hara. So this is the process. A devotee simply cries out for the Lord, and he says, my Lord, you do whatever is to be done, visa, passport, and entry, exit, whatever is to be done. So that's why Krishna assures Arjuna, Tasma Sarveshu Kaleshu Yoga Yukta Bhavardhana. Don't worry. A devotee does not have to worry about any of these things. A devotee can leave his body in any way It may look inauspicious for the people of this world, but because the devotee has served me whole life, I take care of him. So Sripad Ramanujacharya has asked this question to Lord Varadraj, to Kanchipurna, who was serving Lord Varadraj in Kanchipurna. So he asked that what will happen to a devotee who serves you whole life, my Lord, but at the end of the life he just dies all of a sudden in an accident or a snake bite or some way, and is not able to consciously remove it. And Lord says, Mahasucha, do not fear, do not worry. For a devotee who has served me whole life, I take the responsibility of reminding him of myself at the time of death. I come in his consciousness and remind him of myself. On the other hand, a person may die in a very auspicious kind of situation, sometime in a holy dham or some place, but his mind is not fixed on the Lord, and he will not gain the benefit. It's not a technical process. Remembrance of Krishna has to be sanctioned by Krishna. Nobody can remember Krishna unless Krishna is pleased by our endeavors to love and serve him. That is why those devotees who dedicatedly serve the spiritual master and Krishna, even if they apparently leave the body in a way which may be not be very conducive or may not look auspicious, but actually it is all auspicious for them. We have many incidences in our movement, His Holiness Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj, when he was traveling from Mayapur to Kolkata, that time he met with an accident near the Pulia ground where Srila Thakur used to chant. And in the car accident, he left the body. Even Srila Prabhupada time, there were some devotees who left the body in accidents. And some years back, we have 10 devotees of Radha Gopinath Mandir. So they went to Muktinath and they had this plane. And there were 7 devotees and none of them could survive. So there was a lot of confusion why this did happen. But Radha Maharaj gave a whole class on that and saying that actually for devotee, everything is auspicious. Krishna takes full care. It may look like, it's like ghastly or it's like it's very difficult, but actually for a devotee, because he's absorbed in Krishna, apparently it may look like anything, but Krishna takes full care and full assurance that devotee is guided to his next destination perfectly. Either he takes back to him or he includes the devotee in his pastime and takes him to another planet where Krishna is performing the pastime. So then, lastly, Krishna to again assure Arjuna, he says, Vedeshu yaggeshu tapassu cheva daneshu yat punya phalam pradishtam atedita sarvam idam viditva yogi paramisthanam upayati chadyam. Whatever is gained by studying the Vedas, Vedeshu, Yaggeshu, because the brahmacharis they study the Vedas, Grasthas they do Yaggeshu, they perform sacrifice. Vanprastha they undergo austerities. Daneshu, Grasthas may give charity. Yat punya phalam pradishtam. Whatever punya is obtained by doing all these things. Atyeti tasarvam idim viditva. One who knows me, idam viditva, who knows me and my glories. Verses from chapter number 7 and 8. You read that section here the last few verses. One can surpass all of them, whatever they may attain by austerities and sacrifices and studying Vedas. Yogi param sthanam upayati chadyam. So one who idam viditva, who knows this knowledge and perform devotion service, such a devotee, param sthanam, he reaches the supreme eternal abode. The Prabhupada writes, the beauty of Krishna consciousness is that by one stroke, by engaging in devotional service, one can surpass all the rituals of the different orders of life. So I would like to conclude with just reading the concluding part of Srila Prabhupada's purport for this last verse. After that, we'll open up for question and answers. Yeah, so Prabhupada talks about the different things of different ashramas. Then here he says, beauty of Krishna consciousness, however, is that by one stroke, by engaging in devotional service, one can surpass all the rituals of the different orders of life. So this is elevator process, what we have been discussing. One stroke. The word idim viditva indicates that one should understand the instruction given by Sri Krishna in this chapter and the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. They are the confidential section because Krishna is talking about his energies, about how he is the cause, how is the source, how is the maintainer, how is the essence, and he's talking about his abode being superior to all other places and how to reach that abode. This is all confidential knowledge. So tomorrow we will see about confidential, more confidential, and most confidential. One should try to understand these chapters not by scholarship or mental speculation, but by hearing them in association with devotees. Chapters 7 through 12 are the essence of Bhagavad Gita. The first 6 and the last 6 chapters are like covering for the middle 6 chapters, which are especially protected by the Lord. If one is fortunate enough to understand Bhagavad Gita, especially this middle 6 chapter in the association with devotees, then life at once become glorified beyond all penances, sacrifices, charities, speculation, etc. For one can achieve all these results of these activities simply by Krishna consciousness. And here, Srila Prabhupada, summarizes the entire process of Shraddha to Prem. Ado Shraddha, Tata Sadhu, 9 stages, in a very simplified way connected to Bhagavad Gita. So, let's read it and conclude. One with a little faith in Bhagavad Gita should learn Bhagavad Gita from a devotee. Because in the beginning of the 4th chapter, it is stated clearly that Bhagavad Gita can be understood only by devotees. Bhakto sime sakajiti. No one else can perfectly understand the purpose of Bhagavad Gita. One should therefore learn Bhagavad Gita from a devotee, not from mental speculation. This is a sign of faith, Shraddha. When one searches for a devotee and fortunately gets a devotee association, one actually begins to study and understand Bhagavad Gita. This is called Bhajan Kriya or Sadhusan. By advancement in the association devotee, one is placed in devotional service, and this service dispels all misgiving about Krishna or God, and Krishna's activities, form, pastime, name, and other features. So this is called Anartha Nivritti. After this misgiving have been perfectly cleared away, one becomes fixed in one's study. This is called Nishtha. Then one relishes the study of Bhagavad Gita. This is called Ruchi. And then attains the state of feeling always Krishna conscious. This is Asakti. In the advanced stage, one falls completely in love with Krishna. This is Bhava. The highest perfection stage of life enables the devotee to be transferred to Krishna's abode in the spiritual sky. This is Prema, where the devotee becomes eternally happy. So Srila Prabhupada in his own amazing way has commented on all the 9 stages in connection to Bhagavad Gita and how the study of Bhagavad Gita becomes relishable. So Bhagavad Gita has full capacity to take us fully to the spiritual abode of the Lord. It should not be just considered as a basic book. It is perfect in itself. But yes, there are more elaboration in Bhagavatam with examples and more in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Bhagavad Gita itself is also perfect and complete. This is spoken by the Supreme Lord. So this is the summary for today. We discussed about the doubts of Arjuna, and then we, So we discussed about the doubts of Arjuna, and Krishna gives the answer. The last doubt, how to remember you at the time of death, Krishna says that whatever state of being one remember, that one achieves, and if one remember me, he comes to my abode. And then Krishna talks about the different processes of remembering him and their consequences. And lastly, he talks about the path of yogis and the path of devotees. And
no, here you're not given one space actually.
From both sides.
No, center important. Both sides needed.
How are you?
These are bhaktas. These are bhaktas always blissfully engaged in Krishna's service and finally attaining to the Lord's service. So tomorrow we will discuss about the most confidential knowledge. The 9th and 10th chapter are the essence of the 6 chapters also of this middle. So tomorrow we will discuss that. We have 5 minutes. If there is any question, we will take. Else we will conclude.
I can ask question, Prabhu.
Oh yeah, sure. You can surely comment also. Any devotee can comment also.
I am not qualified to comment on this particular chapter the way you have explained.